The year is 878, January, and England is dying. A king runs through frozen marshland in the dead of night, barefoot, cloaked in mud, with nothing but his life and the ruins of a kingdom behind him. Behind him, the fires of Chippenham still burn against the winter sky. His men move in terrified silence around him. The darkness itself feels like an enemy. Alfred, king of the West Saxons, the last Saxon king standing. He is now a fugitive, and if you had stood on that frozen riverbank, you would not have believed he could survive. If this story grips you from the very first moment, stay with us. What follows is one of the most extraordinary accounts of survival in all of recorded history. But to understand that January night, we must go back. Back to a world already broken. Back to an England that had been bleeding for nearly a century. The British Isles in the 9th century are a patchwork of proud, vulnerable kingdoms. There is no England yet, no single nation, no unified people, only Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, and Wessex. These are Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, Christian kingdoms, built on the labor of farmers, the prayers of monks, and the swords of warriors loyal to their lords. The villages of Anglo-Saxon England are small, tight clusters of timber and thatch. Families sleep beside animals for warmth. Wood smoke hangs over everything. Children carry water. Women grind grain. The church is the center of everything, not just spiritually, but politically, where oaths are sworn, where justice is delivered, where kings receive their divine right to rule. And then the Northmen arrive. The first recorded Viking raid strikes Lindisfarne in 793, a monastery off the northeastern coast, a place of extraordinary holiness and extraordinary vulnerability. The monks there have no weapons. They have prayers. They have manuscripts. They have faith. The Northmen arriving in their serpent-headed longships have axes. The chronicle written afterward shakes with disbelief. It describes the heathens slaughtering the servants of God, plundering sacred treasures, trampling the altars underfoot, without mercy, without hesitation. For the Anglo-Saxons, this is not simply violence, it is cosmic horror. It means God has allowed this to happen. That question will haunt England for generations. If this kind of deep historical storytelling moves you, consider subscribing. We bring the past to life with honesty, depth, and the respect it deserves. In the decades following Lindisfarne, the raids intensify. They grow bolder, deeper, more organized. What begins as summer attacks transforms into something far more terrifying. The Northmen begin to winter in England. They stop raiding and start settling. They bring horses. They bring armies. The Anglo-Saxons call this new force the Great Heathen Army. It arrives in East Anglia in 865, and nothing will ever be the same. The Great Heathen Army is not a rabble. It is disciplined, mobile, and devastatingly effective. Its leaders are experienced commanders who understand both warfare and politics. They want land. They want power. Northumbria falls first. In 866, the Great Army captures York, the second city of England, a Roman stronghold. The Northumbrian kings, weakened by civil war, cannot resist. Both rival Northumbrian kings are killed attempting to retake the city. The kingdom ceases to exist as a sovereign power. The north of England is simply gone. Mercia staggers next. Its king pays tribute, buys time, but not salvation. East Anglia suffers perhaps the most dramatic fate of all. Its king Edmund refuses to renounce his Christian faith. The sources describe what follows with quiet, horrified precision. He is bound to a tree, used as target practice, then beheaded. He will later be venerated as Saint Edmund. But in 869, he is simply a dead king and a broken kingdom. 3 kingdoms fallen, 1 remains, Wessex. Standing between the Great Heathen Army and total dominion over England is a young man who has never wanted to be king, Alfred, born in 849. The youngest of 5 sons, he is not supposed to rule. As a child, he is sent twice to Rome, a journey of thousands of miles. The Pope himself anoints him, as if marking this particular boy for something. Alfred is a scholar, a reader, a man of deep religious feeling, plagued by a mysterious illness throughout his life. He is not by nature a warrior king, and yet history chooses him. His 4 elder brothers all take the throne before him, and all die. Alfred becomes king in 871 at approximately 22 years of age, inheriting a kingdom already under attack. That very year, Wessex fights 9 pitched battles against the Danes, 9 battles in a single year. Alfred himself fights while reportedly ill. The kingdom survives, barely. A peace is bought with silver. The Danish army withdraws into Mercia. Wessex breathes again, but the relief is temporary. Everyone who pays attention understands the danger has not passed. Through the 870s, Alfred governs. He prays. He watches Mercia finally fall in 874. He can feel the pressure tightening around his kingdom like a hand closing into a fist. We are approaching the darkest moment of this story. We are glad you are still with us. If this moves you, please share it with someone who loves history. In the winter of 877 into 878, the Danish king Guthrum makes his move. It is midwinter, the dead of the agricultural year, when armies are not supposed to march. Guthrum does not wait for spring. He marches his army directly to Chippenham, a royal estate in Wiltshire, where Alfred is celebrating 12th night. Feasting, resting. His guard lowered just slightly. The Danes strike before dawn. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle is spare in its description, but devastating in its meaning. The army moves against Alfred by stealth. Many of his followers are killed. The rest scatter into darkness. Alfred escapes with a small band of men, with almost nothing, into the winter night. Chippenham is taken. Wessex is decapitated, and the last king of the last Saxon kingdom vanishes. He vanishes into the Somerset marshes. The Somerset levels in January are barely land at all. They are waterlogged wilderness, reed beds, alder scrub, peat islands barely rising above the floodline. Cold, damp, and disorienting. In summer, they are difficult. In winter, they are brutal. But they are a place where an army cannot easily follow. A hiding place, not a kingdom, the bottom of everything. Here Alfred shelters. Here he waits. The chronicle gives us almost no detail about these weeks, and that silence itself is eloquent, devastating, human. What do you do when you are a king in hiding? When your people are killed and enslaved? When the enemy sleeps in your royal hall and eats your food? One later source gives us the famous story of the burning cakes. A peasant woman asks the unrecognized king to watch her bread baking. His mind is elsewhere. The bread burns. Whether this story is literally true, we cannot say. But it captures something psychologically real. A king stripped of everything, invisible, helpless. His mind consumed by the weight of what he has lost. Because even in the marsh, Alfred's mind is working. He sends out messengers. He maintains contact with loyal lords throughout Wessex and beyond. He receives intelligence about Danish movements. The marshes are not just a refuge, they are a base. Meanwhile, across Wessex, the news of Chippenham spreads like fire through thatch. Their king is gone. The Danes are in the royal hall. Villagers wait in silence, not knowing if this week will bring fire. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle records that much of the population flees across the sea, to Francia, to Ireland, anywhere that feels safer than in England without a king. Others simply submit. The monasteries suffer terribly, great centers of learning, places where ancient manuscripts are copied by candlelight, prayer by prayer. The Danes understand their value only as stores of silver and precious metal. Libraries assembled over generations burn in an afternoon. The cultural damage is immeasurable. Alfred will spend the rest of his life trying to rebuild what these fires destroy. The winter deepens. The the marshes hold their secret. But something is shifting. In March of 878, an extraordinary event occurs in Devon. A Viking fleet commanded by a man the Chronicle calls Ubba attempts to land on the western coast. Almost certainly coordinated with Guthrum, the plan is to crush Alfred between two forces. But Devon's ealdorman Otter does not wait to be surrounded. He attacks before the Vikings can establish themselves on shore. The battle is fierce. Astonishingly, the English win. Ubba is killed. His forces scattered. A sacred Viking war banner called the Raven is captured. The first crack of light appears in the longest winter. This moment matters enormously. It tells Alfred that his people have not entirely broken, that somewhere in Wessex men are still willing to fight. The fire has not gone out, only been pressed down. Stay with this story. It is only becoming more extraordinary from here. By April or May, Alfred moves. He leaves the marshes and rides to a place called Egbert's Stone, a landmark in the heartland of Wessex, a meeting point his people would know and recognize. And the men come, ealdormen, thanes, warriors, farmers carrying spears. They come from Somerset, from Wiltshire, from Hampshire, drawn by the impossible news that their king is still alive. The Chronicle records their reaction with moving simplicity. When they see him, they receive him with joy. Think about what that means. These men have spent months not knowing if Alfred lived or fled or lay dead in some frozen ditch. And now he is here, alive, still their king. The relief must have been overwhelming. The kind of emotion that men who rarely speak of feelings would have felt in their chests like a physical blow, like breath returning after drowning. Alfred gives them no time to rest in their relief. One night at Iley Oak, then a fast march toward Edington in Wiltshire, where Guthrum and the main Danish army are encamped. The speed of this movement reveals genuine military planning, not desperate improvisation. Alfred has spent the winter counting his resources, calculating the Danish position, timing everything with careful, cold precision. If this story moves you as deeply as it moves us, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What moment of Alfred's story strikes you most powerfully? The Battle of Edington, Ethandun in the Chronicle, described briefly, but with enormous clarity of outcome. Alfred fights with a close shield wall, the classic Anglo-Saxon formation of locked shields and locked resolve. It is brutal, intimate combat. The sound of axes on wood, men screaming through clenched teeth, the shield wall bending, but not breaking. Alfred drives forward and does not stop. The Danes break. They flee. Alfred pursues them without mercy, back across the chalk downland, back to the fortified camp at Chippenham where the nightmare began in January. He besieges the camp. 2 weeks. The Danes inside begin running short of food and hope. Then Guthrum sends out messengers. He wants to negotiate. The terms Alfred offers are not what anyone expects. He does not demand Guthrum's death. He does not demand total submission. He demands peace, hostages, and baptism. Guthrum and 30 of his commanders must convert to Christianity. Alfred will stand as Guthrum's godfather. This is an extraordinary political and spiritual act. He is not simply defeating an enemy. He is trying to transform one, to bind him into the Christian world. 3 weeks after the battle, Guthrum arrives at a place called Aller, near Alfred's Somerset refuge. He is baptized. He takes the deeply Anglo-Saxon name Ethelstan, as if Alfred is renaming him into a new identity. Alfred gives Guthrum gifts, feasts with him for 12 days. To outside observers, this might look like a peace between equals. In a sense, it is. Because Alfred is not merely a warrior, he is a statesman. Guthrum and his army withdraw from Wessex. They settle in East Anglia. The immediate catastrophe is over. Alfred stands in his kingdom again, battered, scarred, depleted, but standing. We are nearing the end of this chapter of England's story. But before we close, we want you to feel what this year truly means, not as history, as human experience. For ordinary people in Wessex, 878 is 12 months of almost unbearable compression. January brings the unthinkable. February and March bring cold silence. April brings the impossible. The returned king. Then the battle. Then the siege. Then the breathless hope of victory. And then the strange, fragile peace. People who spent months not knowing whether to pray for survival or death must learn to breathe again. The monks who survive begin, very carefully, to write it all down. And Alfred begins to build, because he understands something many warrior kings do not. Military victory is not enough. A kingdom destroyed by a single night raid has fatal structural weaknesses. He builds a network of fortified towns called burhs. He reorganizes his army. He invests in a fleet to challenge Viking ships at sea. He translates books himself because he believes ignorant people cannot defend themselves. He writes legal codes. He reforms his kingdom's education. He does all of this while governing, while fighting, while enduring his mysterious illness. The work is relentless, the vision extraordinary. Later generations will call him Alfred the Great, the only English monarch ever to receive that title. But he does not know that yet. In 878, he is simply a man rebuilding from the ashes. On some quiet evening in late summer, Alfred sits, perhaps in a newly repaired hall, perhaps at prayer in a half-ruined church, looking out across the chalk downland toward a horizon not on fire. He thinks perhaps about the January night when he ran, about the cold, about the mud, about the moment when everything was lost and the darkness was absolute and complete. He survived that. His people survived that. This small, fragile, extraordinary Anglo-Saxon world is still here, still breathing, still fighting, against all probability. That is what 878 means. Not just the survival of a king, but the survival of a civilization that almost did not make it through a single winter. And that is why, more than 1,000 years later, we are still telling this story. Thank you for watching. If this documentary moved you, please subscribe and leave a comment below. Tell us what surprised you most. Tell us what you want to explore next. Every comment, every subscription, every share. It helps us keep bringing the past to life with the honesty and depth it deserves. England survives 878, but the story is far from over.